Hey everybody, welcome to the Dice Tower. I'm Wendy Yi.
I'm Chris Yi.
And today we are going to be reviewing Boonlake by Alexander Pfister.
This is published by Capstone Games. This is a heavier game of Pfister's that involves a unique action selection mechanism. Not quite something we've seen before, really.
Yeah, it's a little bit different there, but it's definitely a Euro and it's definitely got some heavy stuff to it.
And it's definitely a Pfister game, so I'll go ahead and show you how it plays and then we'll give you our thoughts. Here's the setup for a game of Boonlake. I have only one player board set up over here, but if you're playing 1 to 4 players, you'll have this many out. This is just for ease of the camera shot here. This is the main board over here, and then this is the action selection board. The point of the game is to have the most victory points at the end of 2 rounds. Rounds are tracked by moving your boats along the river here, and then you'll be doing that whole sequence twice, and that'll be the 2 rounds of the game. Also on the main board here are money and card income engines, as well as places to earn victory points at the 4 scoring phases of the game. You'll also score points during income by clearing pieces off of your board and placing them out onto the green tiles on the main board. The other way that you'll be scoring points is from cards. All cards on the bottom here will show some points, or some of them will have variable points depending on endgame scoring objectives. A basic turn is driven by this action board here. The active player will choose one of these 7 action tiles to activate for that round, and then we'll be able to do these following steps. First, they alone will get to do some stuff shown here on the left side, and then usually every player, including the active player, will get to do what's shown on the right. So first off, most of these tiles will allow a player to buy or sell off a card. If a player wanted to buy this card, they would have to pay the coins and resources shown over here, and they would add it in front of them, or they can always discard it to get 2 coins. Next up, they would be able to take out the main action here shown on the left side of the arrow. Lastly, every player would then get to do what's shown on the right-hand side. Several of these actions will allow players to build tiles out onto the board, whether they'll be a pasture tile, which is where cows can go onto, or whether they'll be these gray-backed regular tiles where the cowboys or the people can get built out onto, and then eventually upgraded into small buildings and then into larger settlements. When you place tiles out onto the main board, you'll get the benefit of whatever's covered up, maybe cards or extra money, or in this case, production of a few of the game's different resources. Some actions allow you to get more of your workers or your cowboys from your reserve and put them into your active area of your pool. Other actions here let you take your workers and place them out onto the board, say onto this spot here, covering up that bonus of 3 coins, which you'd receive. Later actions of this same symbol allow you to upgrade a cowboy up into one of the buildings by discarding one of your active pool of workers, and then you replace this building here. Or you can spend 2 of these to increase it from one of these houses into a larger settlement. There are some more rules about the requirements of doing some of these upgrades. However, this is just a brief overview of the rules, not an in-depth full explanation. However, you will earn more different types of income as you clear these pieces off of your board. And if you clear off an entire row of these wood pieces off a row, you get extra of these available cowboys or workers that you can use throughout the game. Other actions will allow you to get these automation tiles, which are kind of technologies. You'll pay whatever the requirement is over here and place one of these tiles into this slot. This is now an ability that you can fire off once per round or once per scoring phase by moving this down and showing and activating it right away. This shows that it is done. At the 4 scoring phases of the game, these will reset. After the active player has finished building the card, if they so choose, doing the actions on the left side, and after all players around the table have done the actions on the right-hand side, the active player will now move their ship along the track here up to the number of spaces shown next to the action that was selected, in this case up to 4. The player could then move their boat 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces. In this case they would be earning a coin, but there are also extra card draws, these vases over here for very expensive cards, more production engines, points, other little bonuses they'll get along the river. Once the action is done being taken, this will slide up from the bottom, and now the actions are reset for the next player to go. At the end of a turn in which any player's ship crosses this first dam here, they'll trigger the first interim scoring of the game. The steps are shown here. Players will get to build up to 2 cards or do 2 upgrades from people into houses or houses into settlements. Then they'll choose one of the scoring objectives, which I'll show below. Each player has these 4 interim scoring tokens here. The first one is worth 1 point, second worth 2, 3, then 4 points. At the first interim scoring, every player will select one of these objectives that they're working towards and put their 1 point marker into the space of their color. So in this case, you are trying to build lots of spaces adjacent to each other, or get lots of upgrades all the way up to settlements, or to have these technology automation tiles, or to have card income engines. Player will choose one of these, and if they meet the requirements shown here for the first interim scoring, they'll score 1 point. When the second interim scoring comes up, they will have to place this onto one of the other 3 objectives, and if they meet the requirements shown on the second interim scoring requirements, they'll earn that many points. There's also a bonus. They'll get double the amount of points if they do their own. So they're really incentivized to wait to do their own for the 4th round of scoring because they want to try and double the 4 points for the 4th interim scoring. The next step of interim scoring is to get your income based on things shown on your board, as well as these tracks on the side of the board here. Then, any player who has unused of these automation tiles here will get 1 victory point for each automation tile they did not use on that turn, and then will also get to reset all of their automation tiles. At the end of a turn at which one of the boats crosses this second dam, that'll trigger the second interim scoring following all the same procedures, but then the boats will be reset to the top here. We're halfway through the game. The boats will continue advancing this way. When it crosses the dam, here they'll trigger the 3rd interim scoring, but instead of moving along this side of the river, they'll trigger this way along the second half of the game, and then when any boat crosses this part here, that will trigger the end game scoring. When the end game scoring is triggered, you'll do a normal interim scoring, the 4th one, but you'll also do these steps here for the end of the game. For every amount of the automation technology tiles that players have, they will earn points. If they have 4 to 6 of them, they'll get 2 points each. If they have 7 or more, then they'll get 3 points per each. Players will score any cards that show the end game scoring symbol on them, and then players will get bonuses for going further down onto their player boards and uncovering more of those pieces. When a player is choosing which card to build or to discard for coins, it has to match the phase of the day. So in this case, this is a daytime phase. This is an afternoon phase card, which would have to correspond to an afternoon action, and then these ones are nighttime cards, which would have to correspond to a nighttime action. In order to be able to pay for these cards, players will have to pay the number of coins as well as have the resources shown. Resources are either produced by having canoes in those slots or by having these production buildings slotted in. Because these canoes are here producing wood for me, and this production building is producing the stone, I could pay for this card. However, you'll see that there are more expensive cards that might require you to have 3 production of something, meaning that you have to have at least a production of that type and multiple canoes in there. Or you can upgrade your production building to the other side to have 2 of it, in which case now I could afford this card.
All right, let's talk about what we like about this game. The action selection is very cool. I like the way that the river and the actions are tied together. I like that you can do things on other people's turns. I think that it helps with the downtime in this game.
I think so, right? Because it's a little bit of that. It's hard to describe what is the main driver of this game. It's that action board, right? It's that it's that slightly Puerto Rico style thing where you choose an action, everybody gets a version of an action, so to speak. I think that's interesting, but it's all because of how tight it is to the river, because of the card play that interacts with it too, and the 3 types of cards. Like, there's a lot that's kind of driving the game forward and goes into your decision. I really need to move 3 spaces on the river to get that extra worker out of the reserve and into my active board. And so I'm probably going to try to choose an action in the 3 river movement space. Or the 4. But which one of those do I want to do? I want to play a nighttime card, but I also want to put people out on the board? There's a lot of decision and a lot of it tied together. And I have to say that the first time that I played this game, I didn't like it. I felt like it was too much up front. Too much to determine, and our first game was like 3.5 hours long. Yeah.
At 2 players.
Yeah,
a lot of it was really long.
A lot of it was just figuring out.
Yeah.
These things are tied together, and so subsequent plays, quicker. Absolutely quicker.
Definitely quicker. I just think that it is a slog up front. And for people that are willing to get past that hump, I think that there's a lot of really good game there. I was surprised at how much I was like, oh my gosh, I start with 6 cards. And these 6 cards, I have to figure out how to afford to build them based on the interesting little canoe resource track, but also I need money, and how do I get money? And I need to make sure that I play an action at the right time when I have money and I have those resources all set up so that I can build this card. Like, it felt like a whole lot and a little overwhelming initially. And then I realized that you plow through cards in this game so quickly that it didn't actually matter as much as I thought it did.
So I know someone out there is going to comment and say, 3.5 hours, that's ridiculous. You guys are obviously playing terrible and wrong. Sure, right? That happens sometimes. You will have occasionally a play of a game, especially your first go, where it's going to be rough and you're going to realize, oh, I can't do that because of this. I need to put the action stick back because I can't play a nighttime card with the afternoon action that lets me play the card. It's going to happen, especially with complicated games like this. I was expecting this to be a little bit more in line with the previous Capstone and Pfister release, Cloud Age. Cloud Age was a little bit more medium weight.
It was more medium weight, yeah.
This one is clearly more complicated than that, and there's room for, for misfires and, I got to fix that. Things that will go away with subsequent plays, but that first game was rough. I'll just be completely honest with that. That first game was fairly rough. But, you play it more and you get the systems down. My favorite part of this game, I think, is the river part.
Really?
Yeah. I
get a reward every turn.
I still don't care for the fact that there's 3 different, phases of cards, or there's the night, morning, and afternoon cards. I know that leans into which actions I'm going to choose, but I feel like there's a few layers of complication in this game that are kind of there for complication's sake.
Yeah, I feel like there's a few mechanisms that could go, and it would still be a solid, good, thinky game without, I think you're right that the times of day, I could take it or leave it. The canoe resource track is very interesting, but also I feel like it's such a weird side project that I'm doing in this game. I don't feel like it goes with the main actions, the main decisions, the main engine building. It just feels kind of like I'm going to upgrade my red gems because I don't know what to upgrade. And it doesn't matter in the future. It might matter. I
don't know what cards I'm going to draw. Oh no, none of my cards cost the red thing. They cost blue. I should have upgraded blue. That part's a little weird to me, but it's still a fun mechanism, though, moving your canoes around and being like, I'm going to pay $2 and boop it all the way over to the side.
You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the Azul stained glass Sintra.
The typewriter thing.
The little ding, except you have to pay to ding it back.
Yeah. And it's a clever mechanism, and that's what I'll say about almost everything in this game, is I feel like it's a clever mechanism. Do they all have to be in it? I think it would be a perfectly crunchy game if they, stripped down a little bit of it. It would still be very thinky. I like the building up on the different tiles. I like that you build tiles on the board, bonus. And then you can
put bonuses everywhere.
Everywhere. You put a person out there, bonus. You upgrade person to a house or to a settlement, bonus. You build
a card, bonus. Yeah, there's so many bonuses. Also, that means there's a lot of iconography, which I feel like it's pretty clear. I think that it's just that learning it because it's literally everywhere. It is all over the entire board. Every card, your player board, everywhere has iconography. The river, the blah, blah, blah. All of it is everywhere. There's probably 300 things that have iconography on it in this game. And so luckily it is pretty clean and pretty clear, and I'm grateful for that. But there are still moments where you have to look stuff up in the rulebook.
The artist and graphic designer of this game is Clemens Franz. Right, known for a lot of the Uwe Rosenberg, Agricola games. This doesn't really look like that. I think the art in this game is actually quite good.
There's no people being awkward.
Yeah, it doesn't look like the cover of Le Havre or anything, but there are touches with the graphic design where the icons make sense and are easy to follow that feel like Clemens Franz touches, even though it doesn't blatantly look like his, the awkward people in Grand Austria Hotel. But it increases the usability. So even though this was a rough first game, I do appreciate that it's easier than it could have been if the icons were messy.
Okay, so now I want to talk more about what I love about this game.
All right.
I think the engine building in this is so much fun. I love engine builders, and so throughout this game, you're pulling stuff off of your player board. You're moving up, the coin and the card tracks. There's just so many different engine building things that you're doing. Your hand of cards, you're spitting them out, getting stuff. And every time that you have those little scoring rounds in between, the 4 scoring rounds, I feel like I get there and I'm like, oh yeah, oh, I just got the thing in so that I can get extra stuff. Cool, I just did something. Great. I made it in time. And then you just get money and you get cards and you get all these points. You're like, oh, I did something. I don't know. It's very rewarding all at once.
You get points if you haven't used those levers, the automation mechanism things on the side of your player board. You get more benefit if you use them. But if a scoring round is triggered before you got to make use of all of them, before you pulled your levers, you get points for the unused ones, which I think that's a good compensation. Yeah. Oh, I didn't get a free worker, and I didn't get a free extra technology build, and I didn't get this. I got several points out of that, though, so it's not bad.
And you get points for moving houses and coins, and there's just a lot of different ways to get money and cards. And that's the other thing that I think is very interesting about this, is there's multiple types of resources, and different types of resources act in different ways. So you have money, cards, and workers are like one type of resource that you gain and spend. And then you have the canoe resources that you have to move your canoes around to gain it. And you don't ever really spend them. You just always have them wherever your canoe is.
And then you can upgrade them, the production of those, or you can have the canoes there for temporary extras.
Yeah, it's very interesting how those resources work.
Another thing I know that you said you really liked, and I agree with this, right, is that at the start of the game, it's a little bit weird. You choose these objectives to go for the end of the game scoring.
Sure, you have to score one each round.
Yeah, end of each round scoring. And, at first, it's just one of those things you feel like, I don't know, I'm choosing one of these or whatever. But as you get to know the game better, that's a more meaningful choice. And I found that the variety of those really affects what you're going to focus on in each game. And I like that. I like that a lot, because otherwise the board you build up similarly, and then you have the interactions with, I want to build in this space and kind of cut you off. All that stuff is good. I think that the differences of the end game or the end of round scoring objectives is clever. It's variability, not simply for variability's sake, but it really leans into how I'm going to play the game in response to it. And that's good, meaningful variability with the setup.
Sure, because you have to focus on at least two of those, because the third and fourth round, you have to build up quite a bit to be able to trigger them.
I'd rather get the points than lose them.
Yeah, definitely. And I like that you get to have a double multiplier for you, so you can this is the one thing I'm focusing in on, and it's going to be the thing I'm hopefully focusing the most on, which means Chris is doing something else. He may still, if I'm focusing on moving up the card track, he may still move up the card track, but his double multiplier is not that. So that's not going to be his epic focus.
That's a really good point. So our strategies will kind of branch and deviate more
naturally.
As the game goes on.
And it's not required, but yeah, it's definitely more natural.
Okay, very cool.
There's a lot that I really like about this game. And one question that's often asked in the office is, what does this add? Is it just another Euro? Is it just another of so many out there? What does it add? And so I'm going to give this an 8.5, the official seal of approval.
Seal of excellence.
Oh, excellence. Yeah. Sorry, excellence. Hoity-toity. No.
8.5 out of every 10 dentists recommend Boonlake. Huh?
It's certified fresh. Yeah. No, so I'm going to give this an 8.5 because I feel like it is different. I feel like the action selection mechanism is very interesting, and I enjoy the tension and the decisions that it creates that makes it feel like a different Euro game. I enjoy the engine building, but it's an engine building you only really get to enjoy every quarter of the game. And so I think that you get a lot and it feels really good, and then you get to spend all of that as you work throughout and kind of make it last. So I think it's got a lot of good stuff, and just talking about it now makes me want to play it again. I'm excited about it.
That's a good sign. So for me, right now this is a 7.5. I don't like it as much as you do. I like it. I like a lot about it. The engine building is I think the thing that saves it for me, because there's times in the game where I do feel like it's a little bit of a slog. I'm just eking by actions, and I'd rather have a little bit more, every turn to be able to work with. But when the quarter scorings or interim scorings they're called, when those happen and you get a deluge of coins and cards and stuff, that feels good. It's enough to keep me coming back and enjoying it. I do wish it were trimmed down a bit. I feel like there's so many clever mechanisms, reducing that a little bit would have made this a game that I could pull out more often and enjoy. And so for that reason, it's not as high up. I do like it. I think that if you like a lot of Capstone Games' repertoire, this will be a game you'll find a lot of satisfaction in. But I can't recommend this for everybody the way that I would some of his more approachable games. And I think that it could just be simply that's a little bit more what I want, or I look at these mechanisms, I say, I wish it were just a bit more trimmed. But since you love it so much, I anticipate that we'll
we'll probably play it again.
One. Yep.
That's fair.
So there you go. That's our thoughts on Boonlake, Alexander Pfister design, published by Capstone Games.
I'm Wendy Yi.
I'm Chris Yi. Thanks for coming by the Dice Tower.